This week on Barely Homesteading, prepping the garden for spring planting. So it's the beginning of May, and while it's still too early to plant now, it's a good time to get the garden ready to go for the planting. So we need to get in here today. We need to turn over the soil where we're going to be planting. We need to get as many of the weeds out as we can before we start the planting. And we need to get fertilizer spread out, the rabbit droppings, in those areas where we think we're going to need them most for those particular plants. Now, some of you may be asking yourselves why we are turning this over by hand rather than using a rototiller. There are actually several reasons. First, we still have some very large rocks buried in this area, which you're going to see later, which could damage a rototiller if we're not careful. We also still have a lot of weeds in this area, which a rototiller would just chop up the roots, and each of those little pieces would now become a new weed. Doing this by hand allows us to carefully remove the entire weed, root and all. Rototillers can also impact the soil below the section that they are tilling, preventing plant roots and water from being able to penetrate down. And then also, rototillers can damage earthworms and other helpful critters to the garden ecosystem. So that's why we're turning this over by hand. Turning over soil and weeding, we uncovered another big rock. We're not quite sure how big it is, but we're going to try to see if it'll move with the skid steer to see if it's something that we have to wait and split later when we take out our big boulder, or if it's something we can get out now. All right, we got the rock out, yay! Mama Bear made the comment that we're starting to get good at this, and I'm not quite sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing. So it took a couple of weekends, but we've got this entire section of the garden weeded, the rocks taken out, and everything turned over. So this is ready to plant. It's still getting down into the 30s at night for the next couple of days. So we think we're going to try to plant next weekend after it starts to warm up, which will be Memorial Day weekend. So in this section, we're going to be doing some cucumbers, and we're actually going to grow our cucumbers, or try to grow them, up a lattice. So we're going to install the lattice now, and then obviously we'll plant the cucumbers here in a few weeks when it gets a little warmer. So it is Memorial Day weekend, and we have been planting. So over here is the area that we've been turning up, and we've got our corn and beans and squash planted. Over here we've got our tomato starts and our pepper starts in the ground. And then down here you can see our peas are already coming up. And then over here we've got our cucumber starts planted, and some of them are looking a little worse for wear, but I think they'll do okay. Over here along the fence line we've got our onions coming up, and over here we've got potatoes that are coming up. So while we don't have everything in the ground yet, we've got the majority of the garden in. We've run out of a couple of seeds, so we got to pick up some more and get those planted. But for the most part, we've got our garden started for this year and looking forward to a pretty good harvest. And with that, this is Lumberjack for Bearly Homesteading, saying use it up, wear it out, make it do or do without. See you next time, and we will keep you apprised of how the garden progresses throughout this season. Until then, bye.